Good afternoon. My name is Philip Stevens, and I'm a board-certified clinical chaplain. In this video, I would like to share with you some information about trauma-informed care and speak to you a little bit about some of the considerations of trauma-informed care for chaplaincy. Let's start by considering the question, what is trauma-informed care? Trauma-informed care is an approach to healthcare which seeks to consider any past trauma that our patients may have experienced. And that's important because such experiences can greatly impact the way a patient receives and experiences care at our facility. Trauma can be defined as an emotional response to a distressing event. It could be something like an accident, a personal assault, a natural disaster, or it could be a trauma that is associated with being subjected to a stressful, dangerous, scary, or tragic situation. Trauma can occur due to a single event, or trauma can occur from being exposed to traumatic conditions for an ongoing period of time. Many people will experience a traumatic event at some point in their lives. These events can greatly impact some individuals emotionally. It can greatly impact some individuals physically, even long after the accident or the event occurred. These impacts may include a lasting sense of fear, vulnerability, helplessness, and a distrust of others. Because of the lasting effects that trauma can have on individuals, it's important to implement a trauma-informed approach in the care that we provide to others. The goals of such an approach seek to prevent any re-traumatization of the persons that we serve and seek to facilitate the healing, the recovery, and the participation of the patient in their plan of care. There are 6 principles of trauma-informed care as identified by SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. They established this list of 6 principles as a vital part of a trauma-informed care approach. Those principles include safety, trust and transparency, peer support, collaboration and mutuality, empowerment of voice and choice, and cultural, historical, and gender issues. These principles are intended to help organizations and caregivers to employ processes and approaches that are person-centered, to employ approaches that focus on minimizing the residual effects of past trauma and which mitigate the likelihood of re-traumatization of our patients. Because chaplains interact with new and existing patients on a regular basis, it's important for chaplains to recognize signs of past trauma and to respond appropriately. Ideally, this recognition would occur in the chaplain's initial spiritual assessment of the patient, or it might occur in information that is provided by the interdisciplinary team to the chaplain prior to visiting the patient. However, because of the stigma and the shame which some individuals associate with trauma, patients might be reluctant to freely share such information with the chaplain or with any of their other caregivers. It could be that a chaplain only learns of a past history of trauma after building a rapport with the patient and after having gained their trust. When such information comes to light, it should be appropriately referenced in the patient's medical chart. It's also important to collaborate with other members of the interdisciplinary team as appropriate as well. Such collaboration allows the team to establish more effective plans of care for each patient. It allows for a trauma-informed approach to that person's treatment. Because of the potential for any patient to have experienced past trauma, whether they've shared about it or not, it's important that chaplains provide trauma-informed care for every patient. That means it is vital that chaplains be familiar with these 6 principles of trauma-informed care and that they employ them and put them into practice in the spiritual care and pastoral support that they provide. So let's take a look at each of these principles as it applies to chaplaincy. Let's consider safety. Generally, when we hear the term safety, we may think of environmental aspects of patient care. We may be wondering and asking ourselves the question, is the physical setting safe? Have any items that could be used as ligatures or used for self-harm been removed from the room? For example, in our psychiatric hospital, we have to be very mindful of these types of considerations. We have to be mindful, even if there are staples that might be used in some of the devotionals and magazines that are supplied to the patients, because some of our patients might take those staples and use them to engage in self-harm or seek to harm others. So physical safety is very important, but safety has to do with much more than just the physical setting or the environmental setting. A patient's feeling of safety can be compromised by the way we stand as a chaplain, by the way we approach them, or by the way we speak to the patient or to others in the room. For example, in a psychiatric hospital setting, or when ministering to individuals who have been assaulted or abused physically, standing with your hands placed behind you may cause a patient to perceive that you are hiding something. Additionally, posturing with your hands on your hips or using a very loud voice might be perceived by some patients as you are taking an aggressive or hostile stance against them. So it's important how we stand. It's important how we carry ourselves. The tone and the inflection of our voices, all of these things send a message to the people we serve. It's important that the people we serve feel safe physically, emotionally, and psychologically. Our body language is important. The way we approach and interact with our patients can put them at ease, or it can put them on guard. Let's consider trustworthiness and transparency. Building trust with all patients is important, but it's particularly important when patients have suffered traumatic events such as domestic violence, assault, or some other form of abuse. Many of the patients in our care have been victimized and taken advantage of in a myriad of ways. For that reason, it might take some of them time to build trust, time to get to the point where they allow us to engage freely with them. One of the best ways to build trust is to continually approach the patient, greeting them and giving them the space and giving them the opportunity to decide and to determine if they are willing to engage with you on more than just a cursory, superficial level. Another way to build trust is to always do what you say that you're going to do. Don't tell someone that you'll bring them a special purple letter edition of the Septuagint if you don't know that you have one. And even if you do have one, consider the fact that as a chaplain, an emergency might come up. It might interrupt your schedule that day, and you may not be able to fulfill the promise of bringing a certain booklet or some other materials to them right after lunch. I'm a fan of the strategy of under-promise and over-deliver. Let someone know that you will check and see if a certain book is available. Let them know you will check and see if a certain resource is available for them. And let them know that you'll get back with them in the next day or two. Then, if you are able to bring that book that same afternoon or early the next morning, they will receive it in a more positive light. This type of practice of doing what you say you're going to do helps to build trust. And in that same regard, be transparent. If there is a request you receive that you know that you cannot honor, let the patient know that you are unable to meet their request. If it's appropriate, let them know that you will take their request or their concern to the appropriate staff member. And as you fill their request in that way, as you share that information with them, be sure that you do what you've said you're going to do. Trustworthiness and transparency are vital components of the care that we provide as chaplains. The next item is peer support. Peer support is helpful for establishing an atmosphere of support and encouragement. It emphasizes collaboration and the sharing of lived experience to promote recovery and healing. Peer support might look different in different settings. In our psychiatric hospital, peer support is provided by people who have dealt with the same challenges and the same struggles of mental illness that the people we serve are currently encountering. These individuals can speak and share with our patients in an authentic and genuine way from their own lived experience. They can provide a sense of hope and camaraderie to our patients. It's therapeutic for people to feel that they are not alone when they face trauma, when they face trials, when they face the tribulations of life. I believe that peer support is one of the main reasons for the success of many grief support groups. Groups like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and other groups in which people who share similar life experiences partner with one another, support one another, and move forward together. Collaboration and mutuality are also important when it comes to trauma-informed care. Trauma-informed care ought to be person-centered care. And in person-centered care, it is vitally important to involve the person that we're caring for, to involve them in their plan of care, to involve them in their treatment team discussions. And certainly the ability to which a patient may be able to participate and be involved in their care, it might vary depending on their cognitive ability. It might vary depending on what medical state and condition they are in at the time. But it is always important to view patients as partners in the effort to develop their treatment plans. Our hospital's mission statement states that we are here to partner to support a person's recovery. We're to partner with them to the greatest extent possible, and we do so by collaborating with them. We walk with them in their recovery. We work with them to develop strategies, to develop plans of action. We view them as partners in the effort to help them move forward on that road to recovery. Through collaboration, patients become active participants in their healthcare decisions. This helps provide our patients with a greater sense of agency, with a greater sense of well-being, safety, and security. Such an approach helps to build trust with the people we serve. The collaboration and mutuality of trauma-informed care can enable patients to take greater responsibility for addressing their healthcare needs. If they help devise and if they help discover and articulate the coping skills and strategies that they know will work for them and will be helpful for them, they will be more likely to engage and utilize those approaches when they return to the community. Mutuality, collaboration serve as a good foundation for continued well-being for the people we serve when they leave the hospital and return home or to some other place in the community. Empowerment, voice, and choice. For me, this principle is closely associated and related to collaboration. It's important to effectively communicate with our patients about options for treatment, about options for their care, to involve them in that process and to provide them with information so that they can make appropriate choices for their plan of care and for their day-to-day routines. To the most appropriate extent possible, our goal is to empower our patients, especially those who have experienced trauma, to empower them to have the resources and coping skills to take back control of their health. Chaplains can play a vital role in this as they interact with patients and as they encourage patients to feel comfortable sharing their stories. Through our interactions with them, we can help them to find their voice. we can help them to advocate for themselves, to voice their concerns, to get to the point where they feel comfortable sharing their stories with others. I love the expression and the reminder that as chaplains, we are story catchers. We provide a non-judgmental presence to the people we serve. We provide a safe place and a listening ear to those patients, to those people we serve, so that they can share their stories and unpack all that they've been through. We catch their stories. We listen closely. We clarify. We confirm what we're hearing. We affirm the strengths that we see in them and the way that they have managed to survive and make it through one more day. We catch their stories, we listen, and we invite them to explore ways that will promote their healing, their recovery, and their growth as individuals. By catching stories, by inviting people to share their thoughts, their feelings, their fears, their hopes, and their dreams, we help them to find their voice. And by finding their voice, by learning to articulate their thoughts and concerns, they are better able to advocate for themselves in the future. That last principle has to do with cultural, historical, and gender issues. And this principle, I believe, really helps to stress the need for organizations and individuals to recognize and remove any potential cultural, racial, gender, or other bias that may get in the way of this person's treatment plan, that may get in the way of their recovery. It's important to implement policies, protocols, and processes which identify and respond to a patient's unique cultural, ethnic, and gender needs. The care we provide is always to be person-centered. If a patient feels more comfortable receiving care from a female physician or a male physician, for example, this request should be accommodated to the best extent possible. If no female physician is available or no male physician is available that would be able to meet that request, then a female or a male nurse or other medical professional should be present when the patient is receiving that care so they can feel comfortable, so they can feel heard. Cultural differences should also be recognized when a person is receiving care. Organizations and healthcare professionals should devise processes and protocols that help to accommodate the cultural needs of patients. The potential for re-traumatization from the lack of sensitivity to cultural, racial, gender, and other biases is a major concern when developing a plan to institute trauma-informed care. It should be a major consideration that we are mindful of, that we are intentional about as we serve the patients and those who have been entrusted into our care. An individual's autonomy needs to always be taken into consideration. Let me just conclude by speaking briefly about the benefits of trauma-informed care. There are great benefits to these types of approaches because many of the patients we deal with in the healthcare field have experienced some form of trauma, some form of distress in their life. And that is particularly true of patients we serve in the mental health care field. The traumatic events that people have experienced impact them physically, impact them mentally, emotionally, and certainly spiritually. And these impacts on their lives, these impacts, if we do not take them into consideration, these impacts can greatly hinder the healing and the recovery process for these individuals. For the people we serve, trauma-informed care provides an opportunity to engage more fully with them in their plan of care. It provides an opportunity for them to feel like they are a part of that treatment team plan, that they have been a part of that discussion, that they have some buy-in to all the approaches that are being taken. It promotes the development of a trusting relationship with caregivers. And by doing so, it improves the long-term health outcomes for the people we serve. And we want good outcomes. We want people to feel heard. We want people to feel valued. We want people to learn to be able to advocate for themselves. As chaplains, we are on the front lines as we interact with patients. We are responsible for collaborating closely, not just with the patient, but with the interdisciplinary team. We're responsible for collaborating with the interdisciplinary team to devise and implement appropriate plans of care for the people we serve. By being aware of the impacts of trauma, by adopting the principles of trauma-informed care, the spiritual care and pastoral support that we offer to the people we serve can be even more helpful. And being more helpful is what chaplaincy, I believe, is all about. Providing a patient-centered, person-centered approach, partnering with them on the road to recovery. We can do a much better job of that when we engage in trauma-informed care. Thank you for listening today. I hope that you will have a wonderful and beautiful day, and I hope that you will be able to do a wonderful job serving the people in your stewardship.